Thank you, everybody, for joining us again for the CalSpeed Sport Kart Recap, presented by Growler Garage. I'm your host, Pat Britton, joined again by Mike Smith, race director, and our special guest this month, Miles Calvin. As normal, we're going to get to the Super Series last, so Miles probably won't have a lot to input for the first two. I don't think you've ever even attended a Sprint Series race, but we'll still we'll still welcome your input as much as we can. So we'll start out by talking about the Sprint Series that happened earlier today. When you're watching this, it'll have been a couple days ago, but not much. So we'll talk about the Sprint Series, of course. 2R drivers once again taking the win. I don't know if they're officially a 2R. Well, we'll talk about that, but more or less, let me adjust that for you because that's backwards. That's my bad. That's on me. And once again, it was a driver not running the full season anyways that took the win today, taking some points away from those drivers who are, but the battle for the podium ended up being between those drivers that are going for the championship. The win, of course, went to Henry Morris, which was pretty much expected. If you look at the entry list, I think everybody who saw that knew that Henry kind of had to win in order to not look a little bit silly.
You would think.
He was certainly the most qualified in the field, but that's kind of the nature of it. His dad, Ben, finishing second, kind of a cool story for those guys. I'm sure they're happy that a close finish is a tenth of a second separating those two. But really, third place ended up going to Caden Thur. But behind him was all the championship contenders. It was Caden, Alex Bermudez, Ashley Arnott, and Luis Calderon were the top six, third through sixth, and they were all right there in a pack. Yeah. So really, the championship, maybe this is going to be the race where we go back and talk about it being decided here today at round 3, or at least a sub-championship anyway, which has just one more round to go. Obviously, I wasn't there today, but Mike, you were. So, I mean, walk us through that Sprint Series A main a little bit.
I tend to agree with you about the sub-championship. I mean, the sub-championship, what's interesting is the sub-championship is a championship. When we're talking about this half of the year, right? When we get into the second half, that's where things start to get interesting, right? You get the 2-point things start to really fluctuate.
Right.
Right now, it's all the same. If you're leading the points, you're leading the points. And to your point, the 2R drivers, in theory, the pair of Morrises, they had the sharp end and they were gone. And well, Ben be pushing Henry. And Ben did get a chance to lead himself a couple of laps.
Oh, did he? Okay.
But it was the Morses out front, and then everybody else after that. Alex Bermudez was hanging out by himself for a bit, but all of the contenders were there. Lewis was there in fourth for a long time. Ashley was right there. Caden hanging out for a while. To Caden's credit, he worked his way through that pack, and he scored his second podium in a row.
Right.
So Caden's looking pretty strong right now. Ashley had a good pair of first couple of rounds. She's looking good. Alex has been very consistent. Inside the top 6 every round. He's hitting the marks. He's hitting big points. Yeah, right now it's looking like Caden Thur, Ashley Arnott, Alex Bermudez, Luis Calderon. Those are your ones that are really pushing it. We got a few people right on the outside. They're going to start to play dividends as we get to the back half of the season.
Right.
But for the sub-championship, it's still up in the air about who's going to actually have a shot at it.
Yeah.
Did Henry go 1-1-1?
Henry did not get pole. That went to Alex Bermudez, which does not get any points. But Henry did end up working his way up to get heat race win and then the main win.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something that I know a lot of people are going to be talking about is should Henry have even been in the race? And I guess that's something we should just tackle is that, yeah, he should have because, I guess we should say by the rule book, he was perfectly within his rules, within the rules to do that because it goes back to last year, which is what I'm pulling up right now, what he did last year, and he didn't run the full season last year, and 275 or below average is what it requires to run the full season.
275 average of the 3, depending. It's actually an adjusted amount. So it does. So if you do one round, it doesn't count. It's a little bit different than if you run 12.
Right. So he is somebody who couldn't run the full season. His best 3 last year in the Super Series were a 291, a 290, and a 274. So on paper,
he's a 2R driver.
He's right there where a 2R driver. He's actually at the lower end of a 2R driver.
If you go and you look at how many Super Series has he done? Has he run the whole year so far?
This year, he missed one round.
He missed this last round.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, if you look at his point races this year, I'm sure he's way higher than last year, right?
No doubt.
Well, and that's the other thing that's tough about the point value system. It's not a perfect science, is it? Right? I mean, hell, Miles, you're part of that game, right? Before you took your year off, you were at one level. You came back and you were below that.
Right.
Same driver, different levels. Henry's in the same kind of boat where he has performed up there to fight with you guys. Lately,
and I would look back and look at some of those finishes, and I'm sure some of those finishes were black flag dependent. Maybe on track incidents or something.
Possibly.
So, going into a round when everybody looks at the entry and you see that Henry's going to walk away with it, the whole benefit of the sprint series, I don't know if that would actually
Well, and
benefit,
that's,
you know what I
I'll
mean?
tell you what, that's what's interesting too. And the point of the sprint series too is that the people are cutting their teeth, they're getting better, they're improving, they're learning things.
Mm-hmm.
Henry didn't walk away with it. In the A-main, in the heat race, he had to earn it.
Well,
He did not start at the sharp end, and he had to pass people to make it happen, and then had to hold off a charge.
And I'm sure you're gonna have some
it was
upset
there.
guys.
And if it wasn't, if it didn't have the little bit of love from Ben and the fact that there was fighting going on from third on back, it might have been a little bit different. But yeah, I see what you're saying. At the end of the day, a 2R driver. Look at Sean Fight.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Fight is the defending champion in the sprint series. His value is like a 340,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Not even close to should be in the series. He's the defending champ. So by the rules, we say he can do 2. He should show up and wax everybody, which he did in round 1.
Yeah,
that's kind of how it
it's the same issue that NASCAR has in the Xfinity Series right now, albeit to a different degree, which is like, should Kyle Busch be racing in the Xfinity Series, right? He's the defending Sprint Cup Series champion, and obviously he's the winningest Xfinity Series driver in history. So it's like...
Yeah, surpassed Mark
Martin, a couple of years ago, and he's still winning. He's going to come on Richard Petty's overall record
Yeah,
soon.
the guy doesn't suck.
Right, so it's like it's the same thing, and some of the drivers will sit there and say, yeah, it's great racing against Kyle because we can learn, we see how much more we have to go to get to that level. And in the sprint series, arguably, it's even more of a comparison. It's the same car, it's the same track, and the argument can be made either way. And as somebody with admittedly some bias, because I helped write the sprint series rule book, admittedly, I have some bias there. That was why it was written. Was they can't run for a championship, they can't, they can only win 2 races per year. But admittedly, if those guys space those out right, a full-time series driver may not win a single race.
Well, and the other thing, too, to that point, right? We don't want people cutting their teeth at C-main status. Mm-hmm. We want you to see what it's like to get your ass handed to you a little bit.
Yeah,
you need to go run with those,
just by
those
running
B
with guys.
plus,
Yeah.
those A-main guys. You need to run with them just so you can go, well, I'm doing good, but
I still got
a little bit more to get.
And that's the hard part is like somebody like, I'll use my wife, Kaylee, as an example, is like when she runs the sprint series, she knows that she can get a top 10 out of it, but she knows as soon as Henry Morse or Sean Fight is on the entry list, her shot at a win is pretty much out the window, at least right now.
Quick reminder of where exactly I need to try.
Whereas if it's her against some of these sprint series regulars, she knows, hey, if I get a good card in that A-main, maybe I could surprise some people and maybe I could pull out a win or a podium, and that's fine in a sense, but it does kind of take the wind out of the sails a little bit.
Now, at some point, has Henry had an average in a year over 275?
I
would think so. I think at his best, which is probably a good couple of years ago, at his I'm running Super Series and that's it, right? Because he's doing some car stuff and whatever. But at his best, is he an over 275 guy? Yeah. Well, you know what? He is now.
I would say that this year is probably he's only run 2 races this year, but I'm pretty confident that this year has been his best year by a mile.
He's definitely looking his
because
best.
he used to make so many mistakes.
At some point in the previous years, if you ever had your average over 275, maybe you don't allow them to go back. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, and just so everybody's on the same page on how that works, you've got 275 and below, you can run the full season.
Okay.
276 to 325, you can only run 2.
And 325.
Anything over 325, you don't get a chance to run
that's
at
about
all.
back of A.
And that's actually lower than last year. Last year it was 350.
Yeah.
350, and you could still run 2 races.
Yeah, and at that point you're talking the middle of the A.
How many people are between 325 and 350 too?
Now, are most of the guys in that range between 275 and 320, are they coming out just for the fun of it? Or are they coming out to learn? Or what are those bringing?
You mean the 2R drivers?
Yeah.
That's actually a very good question. I mean, the people who've done it so far, Errol Rubio, Nick Marascio, Michael Voidet, I actually think all of those guys are doing it for one primary reason, and that's to get ready for Super Series.
Yeah.
It's a chance to go race
some extra track
in
time.
the actual situation of racing to get ready for the Super.
Yeah, I mean, as some of my teammates on Arkham do run it in the sprint series as a 2R driver, and it's always they always circle the races that they're weak on. They go, what race in the Super Series do I feel like the track doesn't suit me very well, and do I need more experience? And that's the one they come run, the Sprint Series, maybe even the Ironman as well. So to that regard, it's working, I think, is that they use it to hone their craft a little bit. And to us who are not eligible to the Sprint Series, it's nice because it gives those other drivers a chance to catch up a little bit.
Right.
You know, because part of our advantage is we've been doing this for so long, and, you know, we have a couple years advantage on them. Anytime they can get on track, well, we're not there. They're closing that gap just a little bit. And to that regard, it kind of works in twofold. It lets those Sprint Series full-timers catch up a little bit, but it also lets the 2R drivers catch up to us a little bit. But I think going back to your point before, which is if a driver's ever gotten above the 275 mark, I think there's an argument to be made there that once you're ineligible for a Sprint Series, maybe you stay ineligible, but that's something to talk about.
That's absolutely, and that's a good question to be had. I mean, and that's the thing too. What you've got is think about other different kind of racing series that are out there, where they go, sorry, you can't run. Right. There's not a lot of them out there, regardless of what the championship is. You know, right? You have to have a license. Maybe if we're talking F1, you have to have a license for it, right? But sorry, you're too good. You cannot race, right? There's only a handful. I would think maybe Speedway or motocross, maybe something like that, where you
once you declare yourself
125 AM or whatever. But for our situation, the point of the Sprint Series is to give people who are not the top tier people a shot to go for a championship, to get a little bit better, and have their shot at moving their way up the ranks.
I mean,
and it's working right now.
I would say maybe even, you know, I'm just throwing out some ideas, but even next year, all the 2R drivers, maybe if they do run, maybe you bring them in with 20 extra pounds. And the reason I say that is, you know, these guys that are racing against better competition, what they're going to learn is racecraft. If these guys come in and just walk away, they're not really racing these guys. You know what I mean? So if you put 20 extra pounds on them, it's going to make these guys enjoy coming down because it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. And these guys are going to get to race these guys. You know what I mean?
Two things on that. One, there's no walkaways. If you look at all, I mean, Sean was really kind of kicking people's ass in the first one, but ended up kind of coming back to him. Second round was real close. This one, aside from those two guys breaking away and the rest of the group, kind of fighting. Last year, we didn't see 2R guys pull away at all. The 2R thing is not one of these things where you're like, I'm a shoe-in. This is an easy trophy. That's not happening.
Yeah.
To that point, too, why put my money in if I'm at a disadvantage out of the gate? If I'm really trying to practice for Super Series, I want to run at the same program, same weight, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that being said, we could probably go all night long on how to fine-tune, et cetera, but not a bad idea. I just don't know that we've got that issue just yet.
Yeah, I know there's a few people even at the Grands, you know, that will go Wednesday, Thursday and run 20 extra pounds. You know, just to try to push yourself to that level in some
you do the race day and you're like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so, absolutely. You know, and
the guys maybe going down, they instead of just being out in front, maybe they have to work at it, and maybe they will pick up on a few things, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we could go on all night about it, and certainly there's more to be said. I'm sure we'll have more roundtable discussions about the Sprint Series before next year. And
just shy halfway.
Yeah.
So maybe keep a tally of the 2R drivers that do come down and see what their percentage is of running in the top.
Yeah, definitely. It's something to talk about next year. I definitely want to touch briefly on the sub-championship before we move on to the Ironman, which we haven't done the points yet, so we don't know exactly yet, but it appears as though there's a 4-driver race for the sub-championship, and that's between Ashley Arnott, Alex Bermudez, Caden Thur, and Luis Calderon. We don't know the exact gaps, but what we do know, based off of the in-your-head math, is that Ashley should be leading the points going into round 4. However, she's not going to be in attendance for round 4. She has a wedding to go to.
This is what I've heard, yes. So Which sounds like her priorities are completely wrong. Right. Sport kart racing is number 1, people.
I lost a championship from going to a wedding.
See?
So you might do the same thing. I hope not, but but for her sake, hopefully it doesn't happen. But so here's the situation is that she has a 270 in round 1, which is her weakest race, which is to this point the strongest, weakest race.
Remember, a perfect in this series is 300.
It's 300. Yeah. So she's only leaving 30 points on the table there. I don't know the gap, so we can't get too in depth, but that basically means that there's a target that these other 3 drivers have to hit.
Absolutely.
Where they know they can beat her, but they got to worry about each other. But it also means if none of those drivers hit that, what's going to be lofty target, it's going to be 280 something or higher to hit that target. they aren't going to be able to beat her.
Right.
So that means she's somewhat in the Capperts, even though she's not there. So she's going to be watching race monitor at the wedding, potentially winning a championship.
Who's got the most pressure? There. The person not there.
Right.
Ashley's got the most pressure.
She's going to be.
She's going to be like, yeah, I do. Just move on.
She's going to
back to the race monitor.
She's going to be sweating bullets.
Hopefully it works.
Guaranteed.
And overall, how many drops do they get on the year?
They get one.
They get one on the full year.
Right.
And they get one for the sub champ. So you got best 3 out of 4, best 3 out of 4, and best 1 out of 7 out of 8.
So for her,
going for the full season,
this is going to be tough.
Yeah,
this is going to be really tough. Right. She can't have a bad race. She has now 4 more races to go this year, and she's got to hit a 270 or better probably in all of them.
So that'd be pretty amazing, though, if she does come back. She could win both sub championships, right?
Yeah,
and not win the overall. That would
she could,
because she would have another 3 out of 4. You know, but if that one race in the second half of the year,
and that's the way she's built too, right? The whole point of the points deal is that, like, hey, I just learned about CalSpeed, or I just learned about sport karting in June.
You want something fun?
It's too late. Well, now, there's people who, I don't know, from time to time, whether it be Sprint Series or Ironman, and maybe this is a good segue, Patrick Britton, but there's people who jump into the second half, and we end up having a just phenomenal second half championship, which Pat, you've actually a couple of things about sub championships and overall championships, don't you?
Yeah. So that's the fun thing is I actually was saying that I actually just had the points sent to me for the Sprint Series, so we'll get back to that in a second.
Clear.
So
it's not official. It's unofficial points.
So the Ironman a couple years ago, I won the first sub championship and the overall, but then I didn't win the second sub championship. I tied for it and lost it on the second tiebreaker. The third tiebreaker, I think.
Third or fourth tiebreaker,
yeah,
my
so
friend.
It was. It's funny because that's the downside of the sub championships is that you win the overall, right, in the last race of the year, but then you can't help but feel a little bit bummed because you're like, I didn't win the sub, I didn't sweep the year, and it's like the sub championship doesn't matter, and in your head you're like, it's whatever, but you're like, man, that kind of takes the air out just a little bit.
Anytime you lose anything,
right? So
I would disagree on that one, but
it's tough.
Sub, it's almost like
got that word to it.
Not
Pat Britton.
What was Diego's famous word? He's vice champion, right? For second place. Like, come on.
I hope you're watching, Diego. Vice.
He loves that. Yeah. So I've got the Sprint Series Championship as it stands right now with 1 drop, and it's Ashley and Caden are tied at 560.
Beauty.
So we already know that Ashley's going to add 270 onto that for next round.
So a 30 point. That's the to your point. You said anything post 270. That's what Caden's got to hit.
Exactly. So he has to hit.
Never mind the other guys, right? What's the gap to the other guys?
So we'll take a look at that. So the thing about Caden is all he has to do is tie Ashley. If he hits a 270, he beats her on a tiebreaker.
Because of the total. Because
of the total, really? And because he has the higher tiebreaker because of the he's been on the podium. She hasn't.
No, it's total.
Well, yeah,
points.
it's total points, and then after that, I don't think
she couldn't even on a.
I'd have to take a look at that.
There's no way that missing in total round.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
What is the next track?
It's Grande.
It's
Grande forward. Yeah.
And is that what we're running for Grands?
No.
Okay, so
we just ran our 3 Grands.
2 R drivers coming in there.
No.
Yeah, that's what Ashley needs.
I would think the 2 Rs are going to die down a bit. And this is just, die down. We had 3 the last 2 rounds.
They're going to wait till the end of the year. That's
I would
my
think
thought.
So too.
That's the way that they kind of work.
Why not? Is it championship time or I'm 20th, I want to be 15th or whatever it is. You want that little extra at the end. Right now, you got Grande, you got Nuovo, and then you got then you got Grants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And after that, it's the rest of the season.
So the Sprint Series, as it looks right now, is Ashley and Caden are at 560 after drops. Luis is at 555. He does not have a good drop, so Luis has to perform in round 4.
He's 5 back then.
Yeah, so he's 5 back, so he's got to score a 275 to tie.
5 more than but he's got to beat Caden too.
Yeah. Right, so 275 to beat Ashley. More than Caden to beat Caden. He's got to beat Caden next round in order to beat him. He can't rest on that. And then Alex is the only other eligible driver at 545, so he's 15 back. So he has to score the 285 or better. So all these guys have to perform.
This is some great preview stuff right here. I get to write about some
And what's
fun.
the high score for a non-2R this year?
I believe it is...
No, it's a flat. It's 300.
Well, what's the best a non-2R's done this year is what he means.
A non-2R?
Yeah.
290. Luis Calderon last round.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
it's doable.
It's doable.
Yeah. So what Ashley
Luis
needs to do
won
is...
last round after getting third in his heat race, I think.
So if I'm Ashley, I go around to as many 2R drivers as I can, and I start saying, "Hey, how do we get you in that race?"
Apparently, I all of a sudden came up with sponsorship.
Right.
Run it.
You put your your $75 entry fee or whatever it is, and start handing them out to 2R drivers. Say, "Let me cover a little bit of your entry.
Yeah.
Get 3 of them in there. Pull some Rick Hendrick stuff
I got
here."
some bad news, fellas. You're not eligible.
I would take $5 and go run it if I could. But so that's we'll end the sprint series with that. That's going to be an awesome sub championship. Is basically Ashley knows what she's getting. She's scoring a 270 next round. Those other guys have got to be.
For it to rain?
Well,
Postpone.
You watch your damn dirty mouth. Cut.
So let's move on to the Ironman. Unfortunately, my points guy says he can't do the Ironman because the results aren't up yet. So I won't have any results for the Ironman just yet.
I can ish it a little bit.
Yeah, we'll be able to tell you guys a good idea.
I'm telling you right now, it's going to have a Nagao and a Kimbrell involved.
So I think that's what it basically is. So to recap, today's podium was exactly the same as last month's. It was Adam taking the win, second round in a row. John, second,
literally exactly the same.
Second month in a row. Marcin Velazzi, third, second month in a row, which great for him. Back-to-back podiums, his first 2 in his career. Great for him.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
job.
not cut and dry like it was last time. And last round, Sean Five was up there playing with those guys, but then Sean let John go, and that was the last time that Sean saw anything.
I think that beer
about
went bad.
Front. Well,
I think that doesn't taste good. Sorry.
We get a little born on diet down here.
It might be. I don't know. Might have gotten warm a few times.
But you had Adam and John out front, and you had Marcin tagging along. You got hung up with traffic a little bit after the pit stops, and so he ended up falling back, but still on the podium. This round was not anything like that. It was literally the top 2 cats started pulling away a little bit. Then you had Sergio Bravo and Marcin Blasi in that order.
Okay.
Marcin worked his way, found his way around Sergio.
Wow.
Sergio ends up, I think, 4th. But Marcin had to work his way around. One of the interesting bits about this race was the fact that the pit strategy was so swung completely different, where Nagao, Kimbrell, and some of these other cats in the front stayed out. Stayed out.
They pitted at the very end.
Stayed out. 10 minutes to go, no pit stops yet out of these guys. Yeah. However, they were running in the mix with Hayes, Huerta,
who had already pitted.
Twice. They're done. They're done with their stops.
So
Diego's in there.
Yeah.
They're done. In fact, they'd come out in front of these guys, and those guys had caught him, right? So they caught him. So you've got basically the fight for the overall and the podium all in one, even though they're a full lap different.
Interesting.
Real
Okay.
Fill me
crazy.
in on. I haven't ran the Ironman this year. I know we had talked about some rules. What did you guys end up deciding on starts? So where are these guys starting?
They start on the front straightaway. It's a staggered standing, same as a heat race.
Aren't there people in front of them now?
So it's
invert.
It's inverted. Anybody who finishes on the lead lap plus the first driver 1 lap down are inverted. Anybody else is behind them in order.
Via points.
So
Via points. Via points. And if you were so it's by points with mechanicals, things like that start to come into play. But basically, how you finish the previous round inverted, including the person 1 lap down, is eligible.
So these guys are starting
Everybody else
12th through 15th or
18th plus.
And so they stayed out.
Top
and
8
passed 17 carts, huh?
Yes, sir.
And how many would you say?
But then, so they're
People
up a
pitting.
lap, but then they had to pit twice, so that all goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
But they waited to the end of the race.
Yes.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the Ironman is that the way, and I don't know this year, I haven't run this year, but last year with the similar rules but a staggered start, is that those guys who start 20th that are the really good, front of the A-main, guys who can win a Super Series A-main, they'll pass 8 people on lap 1. It's just, they work their way through it, and they'll pass good people.
Case in point, Diego Morales. Once again, I don't know what this is like a fetish with not being on the entry list and trying to find his way in the last second. I think he might have fixed that today. But once again, coming into the day, he's not on it. He ain't in. He was the point leader after round 1 after the W. He's out. Well, he made his way in. Starts dead ass last. This guy ends up working his way up. He can finish 6th place. 30th. To 6th.
Without pitting?
Well, no, he had to pit twice, Miles.
No, but
Because
overall,
math.
he finished 6th.
He finished
Okay,
6th.
okay,
Yeah. No, he
gotcha.
worked his way up. But he was up in that game. He was up there with Huerta and Hayes and whatnot. They'd all pit twice. And
Did
the
he
other
wait?
guys are up. Huh?
I'm just curious on strategy there. Did he wait
No, he was somewhere in the middle. He was
Okay.
like Hayes and Huerta went pretty early. He went somewhere in the middle.
Gotcha.
But
I mean, he had
to
60
go from
minutes.
30th to 6th,
Oh yeah.
kudos.
He did
Strong.
60 minutes. I went 30th to 7th in 10 minutes. Just saying.
He's the host. He gets to pat his own back, I suppose, every once in a while.
So the podium was, like we said, the same as last round. So Adam grabs himself another win, quickly becoming an Ironman expert, really
Ironman,
doing a great job so far this year.
Well, he's got to be the overall leader at this point.
He definitely is leading. The microphones are all live. So I don't know what you're playing with over there.
Knobs and buttons.
Mute you,
Probably, yeah.
Smart.
So he's won 2 of the 3 Ironmans this year. I think he was 4th in the other one. So for the sub championship, Nagao is all but a lock. I don't believe anybody except for John Kimbrell can beat him.
The only question is how he did in that. I mean, if he did 4th,
I believe it was a 4th, but I'm not
there's
positive.
not
on
a
that.
whole hell of a lot of points to be gained.
No.
There's
Right.
no quality bonus. There is the one wrinkle is the bonus points.
Fair,
You
right.
get a bonus point, or you get 3 bonus points for leading the lap. You get 2 additional for leading the most.
Okay.
Right, so there is a bit of a wrinkle there. Let's say that he does terrible the next round. Your bonus points are not allocated to the round; they're allocated to the overall.
And they do come into the sub though.
They
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
So you hold on to them. Regardless, you don't drop bonus points.
Gotcha.
You always hold on to those.
Yeah, so even if let's say you lead a lap and you finish 15th and it's your drop, you still get those bonus points.
still
So
get bonus points.
I did confirm Adam did finish 4th in round 1, so he's only leaving 15 plus bonus points on the board.
Not much.
So
Do we know how John Boy did there?
he was a 68 in round 1, and then he's been second and second. So he has.
It's not terrible.
So if we think about that real quick, we know that Adam's going to get at least a 285 is what his score is going to be. He can still improve on that because he will be at round 4.
So he finished 4th, which means he gave up 15.
Yep.
John Boy has given up 10 by a straight up seconds.
Yeah.
Say he gets W. That means he needs a 4th or worse out of Adam. Never
Right.
mind bonus.
If Adam's on the podium, he wins. Let's not count bonus because this is not exact. If Adam's on the podium, he wins. John is in a must-win situation, and,
I love this
Adam
stuff.
must be off podium. That's the only
Brilliant.
chance Adam has to lose, and that's basically it. I mean, there's more scenarios to the podium and
well, in the
all of that.
overall is
Oh yeah, yeah.
tons.
Adam's still looking great for that because he's obviously had an excellent start to the year. Three rounds in a row. He's been
And what's
great.
fun about that
So-
is that Adam is not somebody who ran last year. Adam is
No,
not
he ran
one
a
of
couple
the
of them.
regular runners from last year.
This is
You
his
had
first
your
full Ironman
Kimbies,
season.
You had your Sergios, the old Patio showing up at the end and whatnot, but Adam wasn't a guy. And all of a sudden, well, hello.
Last
he's a
couple of
guy.
rounds last year, all of a sudden he showed up, won, but then got DQ'd, and then he won another one, if I believe. Right?
Yeah, wait, he won. Yeah, exactly. He won Technico last year.
Mm-hmm.
He gets DQ'd. He comes right back, wins counter. Well, fast forward to this year. He wins Technico, passes scales,
Mm-hmm.
and backs it up with another win on counter. We already know he's good on counterclockwise tracks. Now he's just got the rest of the season.
I mean,
sorted.
if you look at it one way, he's crossed the line first in 4 of the last 5 races. I mean,
impressive.
It's
Yeah.
it's incredible.
I was talking to Patrick earlier. Adam really reminds me of a younger version of Sergio Bravo. These races just kind of suit. They can kind of get in a groove and just get going. I haven't been out there to watch, but just racing alongside Adam, it seems like if he doesn't have to worry about someone peeking in every corner, he can really get in a groove and put off some laps. You know what I mean? So
Well, I think, to that point, right? The Ironman's a different game. It's you got to hit your marks, you got to be fast, but it's a mental game. As you as a former Ironman champion, you got to play the game upstairs. You got to okay. When am I going to pit? When's the right time? When's the wrong time? When's the best time to do it? When's how am I going to play the game around these other guys? It's as much mental as it is just sheer speed.
Yeah, it is, and it's changed a little bit since I won my championship. You should see one that just says "stop" or "off." The sprinklers came on, and for me, when I ran that season, it was before we didn't do inverted starts that year. It was
That's
quali.
right. Yeah, it was quali
So
every
it
year.
was almost get yourself away from everybody, get yourself one good drafting partner so you can put good laps down, pit, nice smooth stops, worry about at the end. You get on the podium every race, you win, and that was my thought from day one. Was you're not going there to win races, you're going there to win a championship.
And the funny thing is hasn't Adam and John been kind of drafting partners the last 2 races?
They have.
Well, they've ended up that way.
Okay.
Well, they also
may have started that way, but they don't race that way, and then they end up that way.
Right next to each other
It's
again.
crazy.
Right.
Like Adam, and then here comes John right back with him.
And were they
then
pretty
something
nose to
happens.
tail at the end on both races?
They got split this time because strategy and traffic.
Okay.
But the previous round, it was game on to the end.
Well, I mean, we've seen it in the
and
Super
you see
Series
Adam
too.
pull it out. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
Well,
it's not
he ain't
just
no
about
slouch. You
it's not
beating
just
John Kimbrell. You getting something done.
down to the end too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he outraced him last round. I don't know about this round, but last round
Nah, it was
he
straight up
outraced.
Adam this time. Yeah.
So I mean, and we've seen it in the Super Series. Is those two have been working well together. John has almost taken Adam under his wing a little bit, and it's paying dividends. John might be regretting it because Adam's kicking his ass right now.
I don't know how much of that Super Series team program starting to come into play with John starting to slip into the RNA program, and how much that's really going on here in 2016 as much as it did in 2015, which I know it was a big part of that game. But Adam out of the books, just boom, here he is, and coincidentally John was part of that program. I don't know. Maybe it does have something to do with it.
Yeah, it certainly hasn't hurt, but but so anyways, Adam is the guy to beat. He's got one round that he's got nothing to lose around for. Go for broke, go get a win.
Yeah.
And he's got a fourth to fall back on. So.
Anybody in Ironman that maybe missed a round that you're not seeing in points at the moment?
I don't.
I don't think we've got anything like that, but we do have as a bit of an asterisk and something you guys don't know about. I'll throw it out there. We had Sean Fight had a mechanical today that's going to put him right towards the sharp end, and this is somebody who knows how to get things done. He's long overdue for a W. We're going in a grande. I think it's a little bit better in the clockwise direction tracks. Well, Sean Fight could put a little bit of a wrench in
How
this
does that
thing.
mechanical work out for Sean? So
But basically, what happens anytime you have a mechanical, let's say you got both your like a normal mechanical is wherever you are at the line -2.
right.
If you've only made one stop, -3.
Okay.
If you haven't made both your stops, -2. So it's wherever he started, -2. So
-2 if you haven't made any of your
-4. Excuse me.
Okay.
So basic. So it's -2, -3, -4. So -4. So I think he's 16th. But since there's typically, and I don't remember the results off the top of my head, 18, 20 people, he's going to start to sharp end. That being said, Sergio started, I think, 4th, 6th, something like that. Didn't get on the podium.
Really? He started that far up?
Yeah.
Not his year.
He
it seems like.
ran in second for a while, led for a while, ran in second for another long while before John and Adam found their way by.
Gotcha. Okay.
So those guys earned their W's. So
Sure.
they figured out counterclockwise. As much as we say Taylor Hayes knows clockwise on friggin' Classico, these guys just seem to be clicking right now. I don't know why.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, it'll be fun to see, even if it's not for the championship, who can get up there, maybe battle for second, battle for third on back. And then we'll switch gears now to the Super Series. No sub-championship to talk about in the Super Series, obviously. And we're just nearing up on the halfway point. So last round was kind of more of the same, where it's that breakaway group, but we've seen it for the last probably year. It seems like it happens every race. Group of guys gets away, and then there's that second group trying to catch up, and then it's the pack that's wild behind them, and it's been a lot of the same guys up at the front of these A mains, it seems like. And Miles, you've been fortunate enough to be up there on all three of them this year, obviously grabbing the win in the first two, just off podium in this last one, leading many laps in it. But a couple different faces we saw this time, right?
No, definitely. Up front, you had Charles up there, and he put in a good solid run, and you had Sergio, and then of course my brother, and I think Kellerman even snuck up in there at the end. So definitely a few new faces.
Yeah, we had three kind of normal, you, Logan, and Sergio, kind of guys obviously that are expected to be up there. Charles is kind of making that name. He's 4th in points right now, so it can't really be much of a surprise. Mm-hmm. But then Matt Hart, who is just on that cusp. He's one of those guys, if he got a podium, it wouldn't be too surprising, but yet he's not doing it consistently. So it wasn't too surprising. But then we had Adam Kellerman, who's an out-of-town driver, and then a way out-of-town driver, Andrew Wood. Wasn't able to really get into that front fight, but he was just right there.
Yeah.
But Andrew Wood, he did run Machismo.
Yep.
But before that, it was Grands, right?
Yep.
And he comes out and goes 1-1.
Yeah, he wasn't very bad there.
No.
I gotta ask you, as a driver of the sharp end, and both you guys are on this question too. when you guys are running with the known, like you get next to, like for you a Miles, for you a Pat, but then you throw in John, Logan, the guys at the normal sharp end. I know you race one a lot. Do you change how you look at those guys versus like a Kelly who's out of towner? Yeah, he's the only out of towner to win a Super Series, and Andrew Wood, where he's an out of towner, yeah, but he's number 2 ranked from last year's Grands. Then you got some of these other guys, Matt Hart coming up. Do you race these guys a little bit different? How do you guys approach the new people coming to the game?
I mean, for me, I race everybody a little everybody has their own personality. So I race them all a little different, but Adam and Andrew fit into that same mold. I race them more like I race Miles than I do, say, somebody who's kind of at that cusp. Let's say Sean Fight, who I regard Sean very highly, but he's not that podium driver just yet. So I race Sean a little differently than, say, I race you. Whereas Andrew and Kellerman, I race more like you than I do like Sean.
Right.
Whereas
if you get Matt or you get...
Yeah, and Matt's in that group with Sean, where I'm not wanting them to be leading me around. I just don't, because I'd rather they be pushing me, because I know how to get to the front. I know if there's a gap, I know how to make it up, and I'm sure that they can do it. But I know that there's certain places where you need to do it, and there's certain places where you almost give up a little bit so they can push you harder down that straightaway.
And adding to that, too, I think if you're in 3rd or 4th, and say I'm behind Patrick, and I see Matt or I see Sean Fight leading, I feel that Patrick's not too strong. So if you're in that 2nd position and you see a Matt or a Sean, you're going to get a lot more pressure from the guys behind you, because they think that they know that they can beat that guy in the front, and you're not in front of him. So there's a reason that they need to get around you. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of that.
Is that one of those situations where patience can actually hurt you a little bit?
You can be too patient, absolutely.
Yeah,
So let's say you got a Fight, you got a Hart 1-2, and then you got a Pat, you, Logan, or what, John.
People are going to give you more slack.
At that point, are you going to be like, all right, Pat, let's go? Or are you like, no, Pat's not getting the job done? What's the mindset there?
I think, a lot of the guys that, aren't too familiar with being out front, there is nerves that come into play. A lot of guys can lead, but they can follow, but they can't lead. So you see a few more mistakes being made. So typically, if that does happen, I'm looking for a way around them. It just, and I think that's why
Logan has mentioned this in the clinic. He's like, if out of the gate we go green flag and you automatically start blocking or going defensive.
Right. Oh yeah,
he's
then
like, bye bye.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not working with you at all.
Right.
Yeah, and
which is almost what you would think is like almost counterintuitive. Is like, I got to hold on to my spot. But no, you actually want to work together to get to the front.
The best thing you can
give up to go forward.
If you're the leader early on in that race, the best thing you can do is leave the doors wide open in a lot of cases, because it shows confidence in a way, because if you're saying, yeah, take a shot at it, because I know I'm going to beat you out of that corner anyways, even if you don't think you can. A lot of times you play that game. But if somebody starts going down the straightaways and they do that and they just move over on lap 1,
yeah,
no way.
You're just asking for a
and we've
long
seen
race.
I know we've seen that at the Grands. I actually remember, without naming any names, I know a couple people who found themselves to the pole at the Grands, and they go full defense lap 1, and boom, game over.
And the Grands is a whole different story too, because if you qualify out front, you should be confident to go. Whereas in these main events, you're kind of dealt what you got. You don't make. I was going to go touch back on that point. You asked me, how do I decide, what I'm going to do? A lot of, for me, is cart dependent. If I know I have a cart that I'm confident with, I'll wait it out a little bit. But if I know I don't have what I need, you'll see me be a little bit more aggressive towards the beginning of the race, just to get me into a position where you try to get some other guys battling behind you. And it almost was kind of this last race for me. That cart that I had was not the strongest, but if you watch back, I was able to get away and just stay out in the clear, because that was probably a 10th place cart at best. You know what I mean? So
you're trying to build the gap.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you limit the damage.
And it's so important, if you can get away with that lead group, even if your cart's not that good, you'll come out with a top 5, top 7 finish or whatever. And like polar opposites, my cart probably wasn't much worse than Miles' cart, but I wasn't able to get with that lead pack. I started 6th, and I immediately fell to 7th at the start. Didn't get a good start. Tried, I did the right things. It just didn't go at the start. And then you're 7th, and then the people behind you see, okay, he's 7th. He started 6th. They might give you a corner or two. Andrew Woods pushed me for a couple corners. He sees I don't have anything to get him forward,
and they want to go forward.
Then he pushes, he passes me. I got nothing to fight back, and it's just this chain reaction.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but I saw the same thing actually with Vince Burke in the Ironman today. Every single time he made a move for a position, he lost one.
Yeah.
Every single time he'd make a move and lost one, and it was partially him putting himself in a bad spot, in my opinion, but part of it might have been where that cart wanted something different.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't have the bottom end. Well, go get him at the top. Don't try and make it happen on the bottom.
Right.
Vice versa, whatever.
And that's totally the case, and it kind of tails back into what we talked about initially, is it's like that's part of why the circumstances and why you do have the idea in your head of who you want to work with and who you don't matters. Because if, let's say I'm third and there's a gap, and let's say Miles is second and the leader is Logan, and I catch them, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to go, I'll try to, if it's 3 to go, I'm going. But if it's like 6 to go, it's like, okay, I'll be patient because I know they're going to do the right things. If I catch Miles and he's second, and let's say Vince Burke is leading, no offense to Vince, I'm going.
Yeah.
I mean, like Miles can't pass Vince. That means Miles' cart's shit. I want to gain points on Miles. I want to pass him now because he's going to go backwards.
Another quick question to that point. Do you guys change the way you drive depending on where the points are, how the day is gone, and how deep in the season we are? Let's just say that we are getting deeper into the season. It was round 8 plus. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you guys are in the championship fight. Let's say Logan. And it's Logan fight. Logan's leading the points. You guys are right there. And Logan's leading. Do you guys play a little, hey, we got to team up against this guy? Yeah, he may be in front of you in the points, but Logan's even further ahead. You try to push him up there to make something happen.
For me, I don't really try to team up. I think it's an individual race. So, but I will.
You're definitely going to have a situation. You come out of a corner and you're going to pick somebody.
Right. Oh, of course. If I've got 2 guys to pick, I'm not going Logan.
Look, we're going to be like...
That's true even if they're not close in points, by the way.
We're like November, right? And we got what was it going to be? It's going to be like Grande, right? So we're coming out of Long Beach.
Right.
And they come out of the corner, and it's Logan on the outside.
Yeah.
And it's Patrick on the inside. Both of these guys are your championship rivals. Yeah. You're third. Logan to your left, Pat to your right.
The first place guy's getting hung out. But that's just
that's the same
whoever
way.
It is.
Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who it is. You going left or right?
Yeah, I'm going with second place every time.
No, I mean they're even.
I know second place in points.
Points.
I'm going with the points, second place every time.
To try to get that little action. I dig it.
Because you want that. Because I'm not worried about who's in between us. I'm not coming out here to finish second, so I don't care about beating that second place guy. I'm coming out here to win.
I dig it.
So I need to beat him. The guy in between us is kind of inconsequential. He's a roadblock, sure, but I'll worry about him when he's important. So at that moment, he's not important.
So you guys are second and third. You're gonna go with second versus first
every time.
You ain't gonna give no load to first place.
Even this early in the year.
The worst thing you can do is lead the points going to the final round if it's a tight point battle.
There is definitely situations where if there's a situation where, by all means, there's one line that's better than the other.
Yeah, if he's on the outside of horseshoe or something. Yeah,
right.
You ain't gonna get stupid about it, but yeah.
But if it's equal, like you said, going on the front straightaway, and
coming out of Long Beach, you gotta go right. I would think, right?
If it's coming down the last lap. Say all 3 of us are tied going into, and you're in third. I mean, I've played head games too where I'll go push Patrick on the inside. Then I'll go push the outside guy, just hoping that when we get to the next corner, not black flag material, but you give a little guy a push in the wrong spot. You hope those 2 and you just duck in. You know what I mean?
I literally did the exact same thing. I know you guys do this. I did the exact same thing in the clinic today because it's only kind of fun I get to have. But it was John Kimbrough and David Kelmanson. Sorry, David. And we're going down into Short Beach. And they're basically like, David could slot in. He could totally slot in. And I go, bunk, and I give David a shot so he goes to the inside of John into Short Beach. Well, you're screwed, mate. We come out of Short Beach and... Thanks, David. Yeah. And right on the inside because you just played him.
Even last round, there was a heat race where Logan was leading going down the main straightaway, right? And I was trailing. I can't remember if I was leading Logan past me or I was passing Logan, but I went to Logan's outside. And I was just going to follow him through the S's. Diego got the bright idea that he was going to try to pass me. So, of course, I late brake on purpose, not worrying. I know Diego has nowhere to go, Diego hits Logan, and I passed Logan in the meantime. You know what I mean? So you kind of play your scenarios just off of, being at the right place at the right time, and putting yourself in the best spot to get around these guys.
There's all kinds of things you do. I mean, sometimes you may push both of them. You may put your cart in the middle.
Yeah.
They're side by side in front of you, and you push them both to ensure they're side by side when they go into the next corner. Because if they're side by side, you back off a little early. You go way outside and cut it under, and it's happened a lot of times, especially in Long Beach. You pass them both.
Yeah, there's guys that don't want to go for the move.
Yeah,
but you make them go for the move.
Sure.
And you put them in that situation they don't want to be.
Well, no, you got it.
Yeah, and then you dive in and just take
Derek Esquivel was the best about that. I love when he raced because you could push him into moves, and he would always not want to do it, and then he'd be like, "I guess we're doing it," and he would make a mistake Sorry, Derek. He'd make a mistake every single time, and you'd pass them both.
And I think getting back to those guys that are not experienced out front, when you're out front, you got to be ready for some pushes and some spots that you're not used to. And
absolutely.
So when you want to go, you're pushing a lot of the time, and these guys just aren't ready for it, and it just prones them into bigger mistakes, and it's countering what you're trying to do. So I tend, if I see somebody that's not too strong, I tend to try to get in front of them, and they get defensive because they think that they're going to go backwards, and it just makes their life much worse.
Quick question on that before I know we got to move on to some of the other things, but quick question before we move on. In the clinics, I've been talking to people about trying not to get overly defensive, and this is a little bit counterintuitive. I know that your I don't know if it's mentality or at least your reputation is to be a little bit more defensive on some of the situations, especially going to Long Beach. It's almost historical. But I've been teaching people to be a little bit more offensively defensive. Don't turn in early. Don't crowd. Try to carry the backside. Try to get a run coming off. Try to hold the outside. From your point of view, being a fairly defensive driver anyway, how do you view the positive versus negative on going defense, which has historically been your MO, versus, no, try to hold the outside, try to make something happen over there?
Well, even going back to this last race, it was not Long Beach, but it was turn 4 that I like to call it, up top. I didn't run too defensive going into the white flag on that race, and it cost me twice, because what happened is I was confident in my line that I could carry the speed going in down to that off camber, and there was zero grip on the outside. So as long as you were side by side, you have control of that next corner. Now what happened is they got inside me with a little bit of contact, and everything that you had planned to get that momentum, now you just lost it. You know what I mean? So and it wasn't black flag material, wasn't anything, you know what I mean? But just that little bit of side-to-side contact that I would probably do if I was on the inside, is now happening to me. So, it's when you run defensive, you got to know who's behind you. And worst case scenario, if you run a defensive line, for the most part, you're guaranteed a second. Now, if you go offensive and someone comes in there and they actually get help, right, and you get offline, you know what I mean, because you're running this fast outside line. Now you're talking about maybe third or fourth. So it's weighing out where you're at, where your day's been, and what kind of points you need. So
yeah, I mean, perfect case in point was the heat race I had with Logan last round. Was he was leading, I was second. He went very defensive into Monaco when I tried to or the hairpin backwards Monaco, if you will, being defensive on the last lap. I went very offensive, and he knew that even if I passed him, he's still going to finish second because there's no more passing opportunities, whereas I had to put it all on the line. I either pass him and win, or I finish fourth or fifth, which is what happened. I finished fifth. We both made contact. I didn't clear him, so we both move out in horseshoe, and then Matt Hart passes us both, gets followed through by John. Logan's able to chop down, but now I'm stuck with a cart on my inside, a car in front of me, and a cart on his inside. Mm-hmm. So I literally have nowhere to go, and it was just that's the dilemma. That's why I've always said you want to be leading on the last lap, because you may not win. In fact, you may lose more races. Yeah, exactly, more times than not. But you're probably going to finish second every single time.
Certainly depends on the track we're going to, right?
Sure.
I think on a Classico or something like that, where you get the S's that finalize the corner or finalize the lap. Mm-hmm. If you're leading, game on.
Yeah, if you're leading on the backstretch.
I've only heard, I don't know how many times, if you are doing Grande forward or Nuovo or anything that's got Long Beach, second's not the worst place to be.
No.
I mean, if you're going for a win,
I thought,
you want to be
honestly,
second.
Last month, I was in a perfect position because that track, if you get down to it, you can protect or counter every time, and one of the other things that I think people find is the top guys will bait you into moves.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think that's where they fall to mistakes because just like Patrick, Patrick's a pretty experienced driver, but if you go and talk to Logan, he baited him into the move, and Patrick took the risk to see if he could make it happen.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's not one of those things where Patrick doesn't know the bait. It's like, yeah, I dig it. I know what it tastes like. I'm still going to go for it because that's my best shot.
That was the final passing opportunity because at the top of the hill, that's a passing opportunity. But you're not passing Logan in 4 unless you get some monster run or something weird happens. So it's you either do it there and he blocks and you go, okay, now that he blocked, I can lean on him a little more. And the hindsight is always, I should have leaned on him more than I did. Yeah. And that's the hindsight is you're going for it and you go, I'm either going to make this work and I'm going to win or I'm not. And the chances of making that work are probably 30%.
So instead you go for the 30% shot in that technical hairpin versus a 50-50 at best for 4 and you get second?
Yeah, I don't think that you even have a 50-50 at turn 4.
Well, it's still, but you get second instead of 5th.
Yeah, no, you're gonna if you don't make that move,
you're going for W.
If you don't make that move in hairpin, you're finishing second. You just are, and that's
And Patrick, thought once I'm side by side, if I crowd Logan enough, if there's no other people around me, I may be able to still get him. You know what I mean? But as soon as that contact happened and 2 wheels lock, and
to
then
your point earlier about the A main, yeah,
it was definitely a situation where I thought that we would both hit and we would go slow through through horseshoe, but I didn't think that we would both not turn. So I thought they would both hit us in the rear. It'd log us all down. Maybe I'll be able to hold the outside through the right-hander, and then we might be side by side. And I'm thinking way ahead, and I'm going, if I stay where I'm at, I'm on the inside for turn 4.
That's a great plan until
we just both turn the wheel.
Until Matt Hart.
And nothing happens. And Matt just takes it, goes, thank you. And I went, that isn't what I expected.
Right.
So it's like, log that in and go, okay, don't block as much on exit of hairpin. And that's what it is. But kind of moving to kind of wrap it up to overall championship. It's still early. We've only got 3 pounds.
One thing.
Sure.
Big news. Sergio Serrano.
Oh, right, yeah.
I've heard of some grumblings. I haven't heard anything official. What's the deal?
He's out for the rest of the year is what he's saying. He's not going to be able to run the whole rest of the year.
I didn't hear that, but I was just talking about his weight.
Oh. Well, there you go. He's done for the rest of the year.
I heard that. Yeah. No, I heard something about that where Serrano was going to be out for the duration. Now, I've heard conflicting stories. Some Sans Super, so Super's back in, and the rest are not.
It can always change.
Official.
It can always change. But the last I talked to him is that he could run the rest of the year, but it's smarter for him not to, which I can understand. He had an issue come up, and he just got to pay for it. And nothing wrong. He's fine medically, as far as I know, and all that. That's great. But there's bills. Everybody's got to pay their bills. So, I don't want to put too much for him out there. So.
No,
but as far as I know, he's not going to be able to race the whole rest of the year.
Makes it, after you have a 100-point day or whatever he had, that's tough.
Going back to what I think Miles was alluding to is the fact that you got a guy who's an A-main regular who makes a mistake with the weight.
Yeah.
And not a big one. He was shy by not much, but it could happen to anybody. And Sergio is one of those guys who's up and coming. Terrible to have the situation he's got going on where he can't run the entire season. And man, I hope that's not the case. I hope you're able to find a way to make things happen. But to have that little mistake, it could happen to anybody. You don't want to play that tight.
I mean, you're talking he was, I think, half a pound, something like that, under the
0.2.
minimum.
That close.
I mean, technically it's 1.2 because you get that 1 pound allowance. So we all know you got to be at 199, and it's kind of one of those deals where we all know 199, but I don't know anybody who plays that game. Nobody plays the 199 game because 202 to 199, you're not gaining anything.
I'm 203 all day plus. And that's before I get on the scale.
You go 202 to 205 is really where I think most people aim to be.
I always use John as the example. Mm-hmm. John won a championship, I think, 14 at 208 plus all year. Yeah, it ain't the weight.
No, I mean,
if you're going to go for the overall, it ain't the weight.
I finished second in the second round at 212.
Yeah.
It's doable. It's harder.
You look 212.
Yeah, well, I had 10 pounds in the tube, but thanks. My teammate thought he was helping me out. Not so much.
Before we get too crazy about the rest of the whole thing, I want to really, really quick throw at you guys who are on the outside looking in. Do you guys pay attention to the rookie, to the Masters, the Grandmasters? I know actually you got people on your team that are running different subcats. Do you guys look at those things? Never mind the team championship. Who are you guys looking at? They are outside the overall championship right now as we start approaching a quarter of the way through the season.
I mean, I look at all of them. I keep an eye on all of it just because I like to see it. So, I mean, I'm looking at Josabel and the Grandmasters. Buddy of mine, Dennis, is too. I mean, Dennis will hate to hear it, and Dennis is a great friend of mine, but he's won it a lot of times. I would love to see Joe pull that off. Joe will hate to hear this. I don't think he will. I think it's
a double whammy.
That's just me being, truthful here at where we're at. Dennis has had some bad rounds to start, and Joe has made immense improvement and deserves a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
And I know that Joe will be stoked to get a trophy. He finished second or third in that Grandmasters, which
he ain't going for it for second or third.
He's not. He's going for the win, and he's got a shot. He has a legitimate shot at it. He's only 30-something points back, I believe, of Dennis.
Something right in there.
But it's going to be real tough. Dennis, we've seen him come out with mid-pack A-main runs, and that's going to be real hard to combat.
All right, a tough one's the Masters, right? You got Sergio out front.
Yeah.
You ain't going to bet against Sergio.
Yeah, and you have
Diego who, man, I just wish the guy run a whole season. He's been playing some games, but let's assume he's not going to be the guy. So, and let's assume Sergio's going to win.
Yeah, and then you race for
who are you looking for the rest of it?
I have to say Mark Connell because teammate. But it's
predisposed to saying Mark Connell.
But it's going to be really tight between him and De Silva, I think.
De Silva?
Yeah, I think he hasn't had the 3 rounds to start that he wanted. But we all know he's a top 15, top 10 guy.
Been in that game.
He's got more potential than almost any other. If he could hit his potential every round, he would give Sergio some pressure. But he's not able to do it consistently. Like he'll do it and then he's back of the A, and then he'll do it and he's back of the A.
Yeah.
It's just he's got to find that consistency. I'll pull up the points here a little bit.
That's definitely what Connell has over the rest of the lot. His consistency is tip top.
If you're betting on
going to be
20th
triple
place,
digit or 300s every time.
Yeah, if you're betting on a 20th place in the A main, it's going to be him every time.
Vince is having a hell of a year, though.
He did. I mean, except for his last race.
Hell of a start of the year.
That 184 ain't so good, but...
No, but being at the sharp end, being inside the top 5 for Vince is huge.
Vince is just one of those guys that the potential comes out.
And that's the thing about the Masters. Once you get past the first couple of guys, right, Bravo's Bravo. Diego's right in there with that if he would actually run a whole season. Both those guys run A-main wins. They can do it. But then you got Connell, Spring, Burke's playing the game. Spring is pushing Connell all the time. To your point about De Silva.
Yeah,
and then you got Ariel Rubio coming up there. You got a bunch of guys in Masters that are trying to play the game for the podium.
Unbelievable race after that. If you look at Mark Connell's third right now, having a great start to the year at 169 back of Sergio. If you go back 100 points, that gets you all the way down to 8th place Nathan Hood.
Yeah, and Hood's been looking good.
It's within 100 points of third place Mark. So if you throw out those two, Bravo and Morales, who are on another level, they can run for an overall championship if things go their way.
Yeah.
The rest of it's insane. I mean, guys like Chris Carter, an outstanding round 3.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Well, it's a surprise and it's not a surprise. I mean, with Carter, that's the kind of Carter that you're going to...
4th, right? No, he started 8-main 4th?
He's tip-top. That's when he's hitting it, that's where he's at. The thing is his swing is so big. He's either going to go for the fences or he's going to bunt. Yeah, it just depends on the round, and that was him going for the fences.
We saw him 2 years ago make pretty much every A main.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then the team championship.
Yeah, I mean you put that on him, and then last year it was not so good. He's in the C main a lot of times, and it's just he's got this range, and that's the Masters championship in a nutshell, though. I mean, Mark's consistent, but he still has a range. Jose's got a little bigger range, but it's a little higher and a little lower maybe than Mark, and Ariel's got this big range, and it kind of goes bigger and bigger and bigger. Whereas Sergio's here and Diego is right there.
Yeah,
then the other guys are
still going to be 300 usually.
If Sergio has a 300-point day, he's pissed. Just like you're pissed.
If Sergio rolls in off the podium, he's pissed.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
Come on.
There's a different level of I'm pissed, and then there's throwing helmets.
Guys, especially Miles, as you as being a team owner, have you looked at the rookie championship this year? I from talking to some of the different teams, I've heard it's real tough to gauge.
Yeah.
Right now, there's only a couple cats at the sharp end. You got Alex Bermudez leading the points in quotations, but talking to Alex and working with him weekly, he ain't running the whole season. So that's Justin Schuler at the sharp end right now, and there ain't a whole lot of people playing the game right now.
Yeah, for me, quite a few years back, I really put a little bit more research and study into it. Right now, with me being out 2 years ago, I'm really just focusing on the solo, side of things, where I think Logan has a few people. That's how, Drew and Spicer and stuff like that were around.
Brandon DeLordo now, right?
Yep. Yeah, Brendan, that'll be definitely a name to watch as he rises throughout the next calendar year. So, for me, it's more of my solo, where I'll give some insight to, and we put our team together late, and Drew's probably not going to do a full year, and he comes in and he talks to me every once in a while if he has any questions, but for the most part,
your team's a little bit more laid back. It's really about individual progress and everybody getting better.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the rookie thing, the question is how many races is Alex going to run, and then how much better does Justin get throughout the year? Because the thing is if Alex runs 8 or 9 races, he could still pull it off.
I'm not trying to even put that in his head. I work with Alex every week. I work with him every Wednesday, as you know, and the point was he's going for sprint. That's what he's working on. He's working for sprint. Obviously runs the Porsche, and the Super Series is like, hey, man, I'm going to lose a bunch of... I'm not going to be able to do the whole season.
Right.
So I can't go for it.
And I mean...
And he's accidentally leading, if you will, because of the results. But the point is he's going to miss a good, I think, 3-4 races.
And that's going to be interesting, because Alex has done exactly what I expected him to do in the Super, which is mid to high 200s, which is good days. Solid B main days, and I know Alex well. And
B to A, he's clicked the A a couple times.
I know Alex well, and he's an excellent driver. The racecraft is still a work in progress, and he's getting there. But I've actually been surprised the Sprint Series hasn't gone. I actually thought he was going to dominate. I really did. And I know that's kind of putting a few people kind of putting them in a box a little bit, but Alex is freaking good, and the racecraft is showing itself a little bit in the Sprint Series.
Well, to that point, I think he's got the pace. The pace is there. We saw it today. He was hanging out by himself in third, and then the craft was coming on behind him, and they played together, made it happen, caught up to him, and it started to become a game. It's the craft, and there's only one way you learn it, and that's by doing.
Yeah, and to kind of put a point on that, so we got to kind of wrap things up so that you guys aren't sitting here watching this for 8 hours.
Which they will.
Which we could easily do. We've done things like that before.
Because Miles Calvin is here.
I know, we could bench race for days. Maybe we should. But Alex is leading that right now. We don't know how many he's running, but after 2 races, he's already missed 1, so he already has 1 drop. He's up by 115 points right now after 2 races. So, it's the thing about it.
He's going to run the next one.
Doing the math, if he runs 8 with 2 drops,
close.
He's got 2 zeros he's got to take. Maybe he could pull it off.
Justin Schuler right now going, ugh.
Yep. Justin is second/first, depending on how you look at it.
I think
every rookie championship, the second half of the season is a different.
Right. He's going to go from hitting 205s to 260s, 270s.
Absolutely.
And I would think Alex probably isn't going to be able to pull this off. But it's, as of right now, it's a thing.
Fun to look at.
It's a thing. And Diego Alvarado, give him a shout out. He's 3rd. He ran the whole Sprint Series last year. He's running the Sprint right now, doing a good job, looking at potentially top 5 in the Sprint Series.
And any of these rookies listening, do the Grands.
Oh,
absolutely.
Man. You want a second half season.
It's always Spicer last year, right?
Oh man.
I mean, you watch him going in and out. It's a whole different.
The Grands key. Ask Wes Dent about it a few years ago. It's just. You hit a switch at Grands.
Well, it's not really good for selling, but the one person who did do Grands last year was Serrano.
Right. He wins the rookie championship.
He won the championship. But we look West End the year before. You look at Cook. You run the Grands, you getting a lot better.
Yeah, you have to find something the second. It happens every year. The rookies have to find something big the second half of the year. Yep. And if you can do it without Grands, great. Chances are you're not, though.
Yeah.
The Grands is such a huge. You learn so much.
Yeah.
You learn just so much strategy. And I mean, last year, even though she wasn't really a rookie, Alyssa Yanni wins that semi or heat race or whatever it was. And ever since then, she's a serious threat. Like, we can't discount her anymore. Like, you can't say, oh, she's having a good race. No, that's just her race now.
Yeah.
She's up there in top 3 in a heat race. That's not a good race. That's just a race.
Yeah.
For Alyssa now, and that's
you're like, man, you got 5th. What's up?
Right. Yeah. You're not getting weighed out. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
yeah.
So and that's, you're right. Grands is big in that way. So we'll I wanted to touch on the championship just real briefly, and that is, we are only 3 rounds in, but you as the points leader, you're tied after drops with your brother Logan. Sergio's only 3 back. Yeah. I think Charles is 25 or something. Mm-hmm. I know I'm 38 back.
There's a big chunk of you guys within 100.
It's close. So do you worry about, as the points leader right now, I know a couple years ago I was in your shoes. Mm-hmm. Do you worry about that at all just yet, or are you playing the same game?
It's too early.
Yeah.
It's too early, and for me, it's just coming in and putting in those solid finishes. So far, if you look, drops are a little early, I would think, to start including. But,
right, because right now you have by far the best drop.
I do.
Yeah, so you're in great, because next round you could be from tied to, I think, 60 up.
Yeah.
In one round.
But, I've been in this position before. Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately, I haven't come out on the other side. So, it's easy to get caught up in the whole, hey, you know what, I've got 3 good races,
Right.
And I can kind of, and what tends to happen is you come in a little less, aggressive maybe, or, and it costs you. You'll see your scores start to slide to maybe a 370, 360. So I really just try to reset from month to month. And, last month was a big race for me, coming off 2 wins. Definitely, if you listen to the last podcast, it's all, going into probably my weakest track. So, it was big for me to prove to myself that I know I can be as confident and race on this track. And I think, coming out leading probably whatever it was, 10, 11 laps of that A main, that meant a lot to me, especially going to the Grands too.
To that point, real quick, on both of you guys too. When we go from the tracks that we're hitting for the first time I've ever seen, and you guys have been to every track, but when you hit the tracks for the first time versus when you hit the track for the second time, right? We hit a single track, it's all new, and then we get to round 5. We got round 4 coming up here in Grande, but we got round 5 on Nuovo. We got the Grands, right? And we've got Sportivo, right? All those things, and we started hitting Nuovo and Sportivo for the second time, and then Classico, the pair of different ways, those are different, but then the last few are all repeats. Does that change anything from your guys', like, I did this last time, I got to be able to do it this time?
Not at all for me, and maybe that's just because I've been doing this for 6 years at CalSpeed and multiple years before that at Droma. I think this is my 10th season sport karting, so no, not at all. And that's just because Technico's the newest track, but I still have hundreds of laps on it. Sportivo before that, I have hundreds of laps on that. I probably have thousands on Grande and Nuovo, just like you do in Classico. It's all, I don't go into any track at all anymore. And that was an interesting thing. I talked to Logan last round, is I said, I have not said to myself, okay, this is my breaking point, this is my turn-in point, this is my apex in years. That hasn't been a thing I've worried about ever in a long, long time. Logan said he does that every lap.
Yeah.
Every lap he goes, this is where I hit my brakes, this is where I turn in. My brain no longer works that way. It's how do I get around that guy? Right. And that's just two different. That's just two different philosophies. Yeah, I autopilot around the track.
You
now.
Look at my brother and I. We've both had pretty successful, racing careers at CalSpeed, if you want to call them careers. But Logan drives completely different than I do.
Yeah.
And yet, I had a big influence on Logan and how he's come up in racecraft and all of that. But break points, like, I have no breaking point. For me, it's a lot more of a feel and a sound type of thing of where my motor's at and how fast I'm going into a corner, because I vary my braking a lot as far as pressure depending on how my entry is into the corner. So no 2 laps. If you watch a video, I don't post much, but if you watch 2 laps of mine, they're completely different if you really look at timing.
Yeah, I think for me it comes back to the sim racing, and it's almost counterintuitive because you'd think sim racing, everything's visual. Yeah. I mean, it is, but you almost develop a feel that's not based on like actually sitting in it. You're doing it based off of the visual of how things are coming to you, and you hit the brakes based off of when you feel it's right, and that makes it hard to teach people sometimes. And when I worked at CalSpeed, that made it a challenge. They'd say, where do you hit the brakes for there? I don't know, when it's time to hit the brakes, and that's partially what makes Logan really good at coaching people is he knows exactly where he's hitting the brakes. Whereas I'll do track walks with Arkham and I say, here-ish, I think,
Sounds like me.
And it's like, because I just don't, the carts are so it's like you're putting the cart on, you're just wearing the cart and they're all a little different. And we all know that.
And that's the fun thing about all racing, regardless of sport karting or competition karting. And Logan's doing the tag senior thing right now. I used to run tag senior. There's guys who run shifters or even cars when I was running cars. It's all the same program where you're like, hey, what do you do here? And then you get the feedback and like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this feedback? It doesn't compute. It's different for everybody. And what's cool is that you're fast, and you're fast, and Logan's fast, and you're all doing it freaking different.
Yeah, and you go look at lap times, and I can put them within hundredths of each other consistently.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't have one.
There's not one way to do it. There's all different ways of doing it. It's finding what's good for you.
Right, exactly. And that's just that's kind of the nature of it. And I've done it a lot of times where I've coached somebody and said, okay, you need to hit the brakes out here, and you turn in, and I'll go run my practice session, I go find them, I go, no, that was wrong. That wasn't it at all.
We did that in the clinic. This is definitely where I am. We'd go through a couple laps. So maybe come over here a little bit. This is definitely where you should be.
For me, especially at CalSpeed, if you're just off line by maybe a tire or two, your cart's going to react completely different. You know what I mean? And so for me, it's really hard to say, this is where I'm going to brake, this is where I'm going to turn, because if that cart just acts up a bit and you normally brake here, you're going to carry either too much speed or not enough speed, and I just don't feel the consistency. You know what I mean? So, but going back to what we were talking about, Technico, that was one course where I said, hey, I have got to dial this thing in, because unfortunately for me, the Grands that it came out, I didn't race. Last year when we raced it, we got rained out in the main, and I wasn't doing too hot. And then we go into the Grands on Friday, and it was definitely my
real
worst.
Bad.
Yeah, so for me, aiming at looking in the long term, especially Grands and this season, it was, hey, this track is one I'm going to have to focus on, get it to where I feel that confidence. And going forward, all the other tracks, I mean, I feel like I have an edge on 99% of my opponents on either one or two corners. So
yeah, and that's the funny thing is that everybody up there, you, me, Logan, Sergio, Diego, whoever, they're all going to say, like, no matter who you're behind, oh, I was faster than them. They're holding me up every single time, no matter what. It's just the nature of it, and that's the fact of it is that it's interchangeable as to who's the fastest on any given day. But it's just the nature of it. So we'll have to draw a line on it there and call this one a day, just because, like I said, we could go on for hours about this because we've done this for a long time. So we've been racing together for a long time. So there's a lot we could talk about. Maybe we'll do an actual Growler Garage podcast with us three one of these days, so we can just shoot the shit for a couple hours. And we'll call it there. Still a long way to go in the Super Series, so we'll definitely pay more attention to that as the season goes on, because right now, just too far to go still. Sprint Series, we're going to have a sub-championship when we see you guys again next month. Right. We're going to have an Ironman sub-champion next month. Luis is back there behind the camera shaking his hands like he's going to do it. That means for sure he is not. And we'll be able to tell you guys that next month. So I want to thank Miles for joining us this month. Hopefully you can come back later on in the year. Mike, as always, I'll see you next month if your car doesn't break down or something on the way. And we'll see you guys again next month. I'm your host, Patrick Britton.